much for coming today. I'm Rosemary Mackey, and I'm just here to say hello and welcome to my house. But mostly I'm just going to introduce Josh Wiesner, who is really the maitre d', major domo, whatever you want to call him, master of ceremonies for today. So Josh, it's all yours.
Thank you.
That way I can sit in my throne.
I am really just the coordinator of all this. It's Rosemary's house, and we're really here for the candidates. This is part of our series at the Skidaway Dems to invite Democratic candidates prior to the primary in mostly competitive races. So we on Skidaway and in kind of Savannah area, Chatham area, get to know the candidates. We have four that are, we added another one today that was not on the original email, but we have four today. Senator Jen Jordan, who's running for Attorney General. Representative William Boddie, who's running for Labor, Commissioner of Labor. And then a local race, LaTricia Brown, who's running for Board of Elections. And then Michelle Munroe, who's running against Boddie Carter for 1st Congressional District. First is going to be Senator Jordan. Senator Jordan, I'm not going to talk too much about any of the individual candidates, but Senator Jordan was, at least in this state, one of the tips of the spear that was the blue wave coming into 2018. She flipped a Republican Senate seat in Cobb County in 2017. We then flipped more House seats, especially in the legislature. And then we all know what happened in 2020 as far as flipping seats. So with that, Senator Jordan.
Thank you. Really kind words. So my name is Jen Jordan, spelled Jordan, but it's pronounced Jordan. That's kind of what I married into, very Southern. Right? And you can't tell I'm Southern at all, right? So I represent large parts of Fulton County and Cobb County, but I grew up in Dodge County. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that place. There is a reason that they say get the hell out of Dodge, which is what I did. But I have to tell you, my mom, she was a single mom, she raised me, and me and my sister, and she had a beauty shop. And so every day after school, I'd go to the beauty shop. And that is how I grew up, listening to the women in my community talk about their lives, their problems, ups and downs. And the thing that I came away with was that it didn't matter who you were, how much money you had, how much you went to church, how much you prayed, bad things can happen to you. And when bad things happen to you, you really do need someone who can fight for you. And really, it was from that place, I think, that compelled me to go to law school. I wanted to be that person that could help people in a meaningful way. And so I went to the University of Georgia School of Law and went to college first and worked my way through. And let me give a shout out to the state of Georgia at that point in time, because there really were policies in place that helped kids like me who were trying to escape poverty. And I was part of the first class to get the Hope Scholarship. And it was because of that college became a reality for me. I go on to law school, I graduated at the top of my class, and I found my life's work, my passion. A lot of preachers, pastors will talk about being called, to be a preacher. I feel like I was called to the bar to be a lawyer. And for over 20 years, I have been practicing law. I've had my own law firm for about a decade, led all by women. And we were very intentional about that. And the kind of work I do is always has been representing individuals against all odds. Usually big corporations, big insurance companies. It really was kind of always a David and Goliath situation in terms of my cases. One of my most recent ones dealt with a woman whose United Healthcare refused to cover her breast cancer treatments, and we took it all the way up to the 11th Circuit. They kept saying it was a pre-existing condition. I said, this is crazy, because the way that they were defining it, everything would be a pre-existing condition. Cancer would always be pre-existing because we all know that the cancer cofactors, I'm like, this is the nuttiest thing I've ever heard. So we fought every step of the way, and finally the 11th Circuit issued a 50-page opinion, and said, yeah, y'all are right. And so United Healthcare had to come and write her a check and pay for everything after the fact. But those are the types of cases that I've always taken on. And that's just kind of the private individual part of my practice. In terms of the more public facing, I've done a lot of pro bono work. I challenged the first voter ID law in 2004. We were able to stop it that year for that election, and specifically because we had a lot of older voters in our state who did not have access to identification. And specifically, people were like, well, just go get your birth certificate, it's not a big deal. It's like, a lot of these folks were born at home, right? They did not have access. And at that point in time, too, with respect to DDS, the Department of Driver Services, there weren't a lot of offices. It was expensive. If you don't have transportation, how do you get there? There were all of these things that kind of were put in the way. And so we stopped it that year. We even held the state of Georgia in contempt that year because they had sent out a mailing basically telling all the voters in the state that they better show up with their IDs. And they had been told not to do that. And so it was one of those things where for that year we were able to stop it. And we took that opportunity and that time to actually get IDs for people because it was so ridiculous to me that if you didn't have an identification card, a picture ID, that somehow you could not exercise your constitutional right. And so that was kind of the beginning of a lot of the cases that I started to work on just from a pro bono standpoint. I sued Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State in 2015 when he released all of your personal data. It was called the Big Peach Breach. At the time, it was the largest breach with respect to data breach with respect to private information in the country and the world. 6.5 million voters' personal information, names, date of birth, address, everything. It was like a hacker's dream at the time. I sued him. He was not happy, but at the end of the day, he had to give notice to everybody, and then he offered also for credit insurance, credit repair insurance, just in case somebody's information was then used after the fact. And so it's that kind of stuff where I could use my legal background and my experience and my skills to help people, and all of this was pro bono. It was never done for a fee at all. But in 2017, actually 2016, I had a case where there was a young woman, 18 years old, was put under general anesthesia in a dental office, and she was left alone for 2 hours, and she was sexually assaulted. And we fought every step of the way. We won every step of the way, and then we got to the Supreme Court, and I argued that case in December of 2016. So this is right after Trump's elected, right? We're not all feeling very good anyway. And there were a couple of folks on the Supreme Court at the time who were on the short list for Trump's Supreme Court pick. And so I walk in, they come out, and it's all men, and I remember thinking, this is not gonna go well. Because really it was about, what did this do to this young lady, right? Why was it such an injury? And some of the questions or some of the arguments that had been made at the trial court below were basically, well, she was under anesthesia. I mean, she couldn't feel anything, right?
Oh, wow.
Like, it was that.
Wow.
It was that. Right. So, I got out of that argument, and everybody's like, oh, good job, Jen. And I'm like, I know when people are feeling me, they were not feeling me. And so, a month later, the opinion comes out, and it's like 5 pages, and it basically turns everything around. And I had to call my 22-year-old client and say, that's it, there's nothing we could do. And she was like, there's nothing? And I was like, there's absolutely nothing we could do. Nothing. So it was at that point that I kind of figured out, or at least I felt that it wasn't enough anymore just to be a good lawyer, just to take on the cases I cared about, just to fight for people kind of on an individual basis. What I figured out was I've got to do more. I've got to do more. I was like, I'm a lawyer with 20 years experience. I'm successful. I've been in the trial court. However, I even developed an app for jury selection. I mean, I'm like, okay, I can do this, right? I can run for office. And when I ran, people thought I was crazy because it was a Republican district. It was a district that was drawn to be a 60% performing Republican district. And it was funny because when I first told people I was going to run for it, you would have thought I was telling them that I had cancer. They were like, oh, bless you. You are cute. But the deal is, not only did we run, but we ran and we won, and not only did we win, but then we ended up breaking the supermajority in the state Senate for the Republicans. And that was, as we talked about earlier, the canary in the coal mine for what was to come.
Yes.
What was to come. Yeah, because women had kind of had enough. Right? Women were done. So at that point, you know, starting the state Senate, and this is what I like to tell folks, like, as a trial lawyer, I mean, I've made my living off misogyny, right? Like, it's okay, I'm used to the fight. But man, I walked into that Senate chamber, and it felt like 1950. It's almost like you could see the thought bubbles come up, like, lady, you're out of your biblical lane, you know? And I was just flummoxed by it. I mean, I'm a lawyer, right? Like, we're all professionals, we're all supposed to be kind of going the same way. But that is not how it is at our Capitol, at least not in the Senate chamber. And I remember the first time I got into a little give and take with a Republican senator, I got called to the chairman's office, the Republican chairman's office, and he sat me down and he said, you know, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice, which should have told me. But he said, maybe you should smile a little bit more.
Oh, God.
And he said, you know kids. And I said, yes, I've got children. He said, maybe bring them to the floor. Maybe that might be a little more relatable. Wow. And I was like, and this man is my age. So we're not even talking about like any kind of generational thing. And I literally kind of looked around thinking, am I being pumped? Like, what is going on? But that is what we are dealing with under the Gold Dome every single day. But I will tell you, since I got elected, more women have gotten elected, and in the Georgia State Senate, for the Democratic caucus at least, it is a supermajority of women. I think that is probably a first anywhere in the country. We have a woman who leads our caucus. The second in command is another woman. It's pretty incredible because I think women govern differently. We deal with things differently, and we really are more into bridge building and problem solving. And so that's been a great experience. But not so great experience was all of the things that I kind of hit a wall on. Y'all will remember HB 481, which was the abortion ban that got passed out of the General Assembly in 2019. Patently unconstitutional. Like, you can't even make an argument that it is constitutional. And I remember thinking, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen, right? I wrote the Attorney General and said, I need an opinion from you on the constitutionality of this. And he refused to do it, even though that's his role, right? We go on. I know it's Latin, I know. Right. Then we had a situation where I had a plant in a facility in my district called Sterigenics, and they were emitting a carcinogen that causes breast cancer, childhood cancers, blood cancers. And it had been kind of kept secret from everybody. And you couldn't see it, you couldn't smell it, so it wasn't like your regular kind of emission. And they've been operating for about 30 years. So the EPA tells EPD, which is the state EPA, that all these census tracts have a height. cancer at risk. EPD doesn't tell anybody. They keep it completely under wraps. Journalists break the story, all hell breaks loose, right? And then we start to realize that there are cancer clusters all around, and specifically with children, women with breast cancer, all this stuff. And it was personal for me because I lived there. My children, went and played, they went to school there, and I had a really good friend right at that moment in time who was dying of breast cancer. And I was really angry, really angry. This same facility in Illinois, the Attorney General had stepped in and shut them down. I reached out to Chris Carr because I did the research as a lawyer. He is really the only person who can do it. As the Attorney General, as the person representing the people of this state, he was the only one who could step in and shut it down and say, this is a problem. This is a public nuisance. This is a public danger. And he refused to act. And not only did he refuse to act, but he went one step further and actually helped the company and colluded with them behind the scenes to enter into an agreement which would allow them to continue operating. That was when I was kind of like, all right, I feel like God is talking to me. It's like all of my issues have to do with this one person and how he's not doing his job, he's not doing it well, he's not actually working to protect the people of this state. And then, of course, January 6th comes, the insurrection happens, and our Attorney General, the top law guy in our state, right, top legal guy, he was the head of an organization called the Republican Attorney Generals Association that was pushing people to the Stop the Steal rally. And I was like, that's it. Like, he's the guy that's supposed to make sure that the laws are enforced, and he's the head of an organization that is actually trying to undermine democracy, our institutions, and trying to subvert elections. And then I was like, that's it. At this point in time, he is not fit to serve in this role. If he isn't going to do his job, then by God, I will. And that's when I decided to run for Attorney General. And so we've been running for about a year. We have raised more money than any other Democratic down ballot candidate. We have gotten tremendous support nationally from various groups, in Citizens United, Emily's List, NARAL, Help America Vote, all of the big guys, right, the big hitters. And that's because we have put together a campaign that's impressed them, and it's strong. And we're gonna win, ultimately, in November. So I am here because I would love your support. It is all about November, but I need you to get out in May as well. In part because we do need to see what the issues are with the new voting law, right? We need to push people to vote in the primary specifically so we can see where the weaknesses are, because we all know that the big show is in November. I am Jen Jordan. I am your next Attorney General, and I will take questions. May I have any questions?
When you're talking about the Attorney General for the state of Georgia, we are talking about Raffensperger as being, you were talking this.
So the deal is, in Georgia,
He's
the Attorney
Secretary of
General,
State.
right, is like
He's the
the
Secretary
lawyer.
of State.
Yeah,
Okay.
Raffensperger is Secretary of State.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that with respect to elections, in order to really protect them, you always have to have the hat trick. You have to have the governor, the Secretary of State, and the AG.
Okay.
Because any one of them can mess with the process.
Yeah.
And so that's why, especially, when people are very excited about Stacey, I'm like, I'm with you. I said, but let me tell you what's gonna happen if we don't elect people to support her and hold her.
Yeah.
People are gonna be walking in that Capitol every day thinking about how can we mess with her today? How can we undermine her? How can we make sure that she is not successful, right? Every single day. That's why the down ballot are so important, because you have to have partners to actually enact the policies that you want. And specifically with the Attorney General's office, I mean, if there's a Republican Attorney General and Stacey is the governor, you want to talk about investigations, going after her, putting her under the microscope every second of the day. We just can't have that. And so that's why it is so important that people understand the consequences. It's not just the top of the ticket, it's the top of the ticket, it's all the way down. Because that is how we actually are able to govern in a way to deliver for voters in terms of the policies that we've told them that we can deliver on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know, I was mixed up with that. It was always referred to as the number one.
Herschel Walker says we have the cleanest air everywhere, anywhere, so we don't have to worry about it at all.
Well, I don't think he's been to Georgia lately.
He only visits occasionally.
I mean, that's nice for him to say that it's my going to come on over. I mean, also what the Attorney General does specifically in terms of environmental policy, and I'm a big pusher of environmental justice, is the Attorney General is the person who's supposed to be making sure that these big companies are following the law. Right? I mean, that's a huge thing.
Right.
So that's kind of, you know, no matter what you care about, it can be anything. I can tell you why the Attorney General can have a direct impact on that issue or on your life in some way. That is how wide and broad the powers of that office are.
Who is the person who is supposed to be supervising the Attorney General? Because it seems like, you know, your
People of the
experience.
state of Georgia.
What?
The people of the state of Georgia,
Oh.
the voters.
Because, you know, it's like, we don't know what he's doing, so we
Well, he's
can't
not
do
doing much.
anything. With you, we'll know what he's doing. The chief.
Look, it's one of those things where and Chris Carr got appointed to the position. He'd been a political operative his entire life. He had never even been in a courtroom when he was appointed to the highest legal office in the land. As a practicing attorney, I mean, right, Boddie? It's like,
Never been in
that's
the courtroom.
offensive.
It's offensive.
That's
Very,
offensive.
very offensive.
And so I don't know why we would expect for him not to even know how to be a lawyer.
Exactly.
Because really the only thing he's done, everything's been political, everything's been partisan. He tried to get the ACA struck down. How is that in the best interest of the people of the state of Georgia?
Right.
It's not. It's absolutely not. So we've raised a lot of money, we've put together an incredible team, we have the support, and not only that, but after the fact, because we always talk about winning elections, right? That's what we always talk about. You gotta be able to do the job and do it well and govern. And so if that's kind of what we're looking for, not just winning the election, not only can I win the election, but I will be a damn good Attorney General for every person in this room. Thank y'all for giving me the opportunity. Go to jimforga.com. You can donate. We really appreciate that, volunteer, whatever. And thank you.
And thank you. Well, we're so glad to have you here. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Terrific.
Thank you, Senator. Our next speaker is Representative Boddie. As I said, I'm not going to take too much time on doing the intros for everybody, but I'll talk about Jen and flipping seats, and I'll talk a little bit about Representative Boddie and leadership. He was first elected in 2016.
Yep, you got it.
I think served one session and was elected by his peers to be the minority whip that second session. That's the rest of the Democratic caucus saying, here's our leader.
Wow, Josh, you know how to open up. My name is State Representative William Boddie. It's so good to see so many familiar faces as friends from the Gold Dome and some new friends in the room. My name is State Representative William Boddie. I've served in the House of Representatives, first elected in 16, sworn in 17. And I had the honor and privilege to serve under Leader Abrams as a freshman. My first year, my whip was Whip Carolyn Hughley out of Columbus, and my chief deputy whip was Chief Deputy Whip Gloria Frazier out of Augusta. So I had some amazing women in leadership that really helped guide my career at Gold Dome. I am just elated to be here. I'm running to be the next Georgia Labor Commissioner. And the reason why I'm running to be the next Georgia Labor Commissioner is because this labor commissioner, Mark Butler, has failed the citizens of this state. We probably all know friends, family members, church members. When the pandemic hit back in March of 2020, the Department of Labor just didn't pick up the phone. They completely closed the doors. They did not respond to emails, inquiries. So we as legislators, all the legislators here, Senator Lester Jackson, Senator Jen Jordan, my mayor, Deputy Mayor, we picked up the phone. Like, we were the ones that were picking up the phone and trying to direct our constituency on how to get their unemployment benefits, how to find out their PIN number, how to figure out what's going on or what's the status of their appeal. That's simple. This is a state agency that needs to be serving the citizens of the state, for citizens who lost their job to no fault of y'all during a global pandemic. Everybody else was working but Mark Butler. We all was working, overtime. And I would like to say, before I get into the reasons why I'm running, I'm very proud to say that Mark Butler is not running for re-election. I jumped in the race last year. It was actually April the 5th, 2021. So we've been running now for over a year. We have raised more money on the Democratic side. Also, we raised more on the Republican side. We raised 8 times more money than Mark Butler. And so 2 weeks before qualification, he did not qualify for re-election. So it's actually an open seat. Also, I've been endorsed by 170 progressives across the state, progressive elected officials. I feel very good about that number. That means that I have the support across the state. In any city I go to, I can pick up the phone and call somebody. And that's important as a labor commission. You need to have those connections. But I'm running because when my father, and this is a personal story, lost his job to no fault of his own. If you all recall, it used to be a retailer called Zehrs. Zehrs was like immensely popular. It was Marshall before Marshalls, right? And my dad was working there in the warehouse, and I come from a working family. My mom was an educator in the Fulton County school system, but he lost his job when I was in elementary school. And my dad had to file for unemployment. And my dad had to call in every Sunday night to recertify. And I think in my mind, if Mark Butler would have been the labor commissioner, I would not have graduated from college. I would not have went to law school. I would not be serving in the General Assembly, and I surely would not be here running for statewide position of labor commissioner. My father would have lost his apartment, along with my mother and my 2 brothers at the time. We would have lost everything. That's how important this position is. Because the Department of Labor Commissioner is supposed to stand in the gap when some feel like it's no hope. Some of the calls that I received, people were trying to make decisions on, do I pay for my prescription medication, or do I try to pay for my rent? Because I don't have my unemployment benefits. 4 people that I know were contemplating suicide because they could not get their funds from the Department of Labor. So we look to change that completely. You need a labor commission that cares about labor, has a relationship with labor, but cares about workers in general. Like, that needs to be your servant leadership within yourself, to give of yourself, to make sure you're helping someone that needs a helping hand. And I would do that. As you just heard, I've served as a House Minority Whip, second-ranking Democrat in the House of Representatives, 75 Democrats under my leadership, second only to the House Minority Leader, at the time, Leader Bob Trump. But one of the first things I want to do is make sure with the Department of Labor, we upgrade the technology, which is antiquated. It's a mainframe system, still there for the early 2000s. When the last Democrat left the office, Michael Thurman, we had over 4,000 career centers throughout the state of Georgia. Now we have 1,100. No, actually, yeah, we have 4,000 employees. Now we have 1,100 employees. We had over 80 career centers. Now we have about 41. So this Department of Labor, this Labor Commission was not set up for any global pandemic or economic recession. He was not even set up for day-to-day normal operations. The pandemic exposed his leadership. And so that's the reason why he's not running. But on the workforce development side, I believe that every Georgian should have the opportunity to have a living wage paying job. So you don't have to go from job 1 to job 2 to make ends meet. In the metro areas across the state of Georgia, a living wage is $39.80 for one single parent and 2 kids. But our state minimum wage is $5.15.
Right.
You can't even get a cup of coffee with that. Our federal minimum wage is $7.25. So I want to make sure we change that. $15 an hour is good, but I want to make sure we have apprenticeship opportunities so individuals can get into cybersecurity jobs, get into construction, get into the trades and crafts and vocations that will give you a living wage paying job so you can have a quality of life. So you can know that I have enough money to take care of my family, put away savings, and be ready for a rainy day. Because think about it, when you're living like in a situation where you don't know when your next paycheck is going to come, that's very stressful. That can tear on a working family. I know, I come from a working family. So I want to make sure we do that. I also want to partner with the labor unions to expand apprenticeship programs. I want to partner with the technical colleges throughout the state so we can have opportunities at real training and retraining opportunities. I want to partner with the career centers, with the local boards of education. So we got a 10th grader that says, look, I don't want to go to college. We can say, okay, that's fine. You can start a vocational craft or training in the 10th grade. You graduate from high school, you got a living wage paying job. But you can decide to go to a 2-year technical college and continue that trade vocational craft. Or you can go to a 4-year institution. Those are real opportunities. Those are opportunities that change lives. So I want to be a part of that opportunity. Also, I want to work on pro-worker legislation. This past session, my dear friend, you voted for both my bills that passed. We passed a piece of legislation, 1390, to make sure that any Georgian worker who works for a city or county will have a civil cause of action for any county or city employer that retaliates against them for a claim of sexual harassment. It has not been done in the state of Georgia. It was 3 Democrats on the bill, 3 Republicans, and I was one of the Democrats. It passed the House and Senate, and now it's headed to the governor's desk. Also, I worked on a piece of legislation, bipartisan legislation, to raise the salaries of our public defenders to the same rate as our circuit district attorneys. I am a lawyer. That's my day job. I've been practicing criminal defense law since 2005 when I was barred. I started out as a public defender in Fulton County. 3 years, 2005 to 2008, and I started my own practice. I was not making the money I needed to make to be honest to stay in that position. I was not making a livable wage. So now with this new law, our public defenders will have a livable wage so they can take care of the citizens of the state who can't afford a lawyer. And they can't afford private representation. They are still due legal representation and competent legal representation by the United States Constitution. And we're going to make sure that happens in this state. In my time, my short 6 years, I have passed over 27 bills as a Democrat. One of the bills I'm most proud of came right here from coastal Georgia. I was able to pass HB 479. I was a co-sponsor, co-author. That is the Citizens Arrest Repeal legislation. That was in direct response to the Ahmaud Arbery case out of Glenn County back in February 2020 when he was brutally murdered for just running through a neighborhood similar to this for no reason other than the color of his skin. So today, Georgia is the first state to repeal its citizens arrest in the country. I worked with Representative Carl Gilliard on that piece of legislation. The other Democrat was Representative Gloria Frazier, who had a personal relationship with Ahmaud Arbery's mother, and she actually lives in her district in Waynesboro, Georgia. So I'm here today asking for your support to be your next Georgia Labor Commissioner. Mark Butler was the first Republican Labor Commissioner in this state, and he needs to be relaxed. Honestly, Republicans just don't do good at being Labor Commissioner. It is a position of empathy. Right. You have to care. You have to want to put on the hat and the heart to help others, and I'm that public servant, and I'm looking to be your next Labor Commissioner. And my name is State Representative William Boddie. You can find out more information about me at www.bodieforga.com. I need your vote. I need your support. I need you all for May the 24th. It's going to be a competitive primary, and I need you, of course, if I'm blessed by the voters to progress past that level to the Democratic ticket, I surely would need you in November. Because as my dear friend, Senator Jim George said, we have to bind together and work together. And the AG, the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor all work together in unison to push for legislation and policies that's going to help and not hurt the citizens of this state. I went to the well of the House on Monday, on Sunday night, after the Republican chairman submitted a piece of legislation, H.R. 1011, I think it was, made me mad. I sit by the mirror looking at it, made me upset. That legislation basically stated that President Joe Biden needs to be chastised for not allowing the KILT waivers to move forward. My argument to that was, look, why are we doing this on Sunday night? And two, why does the governor not want to expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia so we can actually have 600,000 Georgians get affordable health care, and we will get 60,000 new jobs? So I am the defender. I will fight against anything that's wrong and that's right for our citizens, and I want to be your next Georgia Labor Commissioner. Thank you. Josh, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I said I'm not going to talk too much about the individual candidates, but our next candidate, LaTricia Brown, is running for our state, or sorry, for our county, not yet. Easy. Our county Board of Elections seat. I spent a lot of time in 2020 at our Board of Elections. I was a political director for Ann Allen Westbrook in a competitive Democratic primary. She went to a runoff. That runoff, Ann Allen lost by 19 votes. This county would not grant us a hand recount. We had to sue the county to get a hand recount. We sued the county and we won. I got to know the Democratic Party of Georgia's voter protection director, Cyber Draper, through that that issue. We kept in touch. November 2020 came around. We all know what happened. I spent November 3rd, which was election day, I believe.
Yes.
That Tuesday. I was there on Wednesday. I was there on Thursday. I was there the next 3 weeks as we went through curing ballots, as we went through the first hand recount. I was there at 11 o'clock on a Friday night as the last ballots were counted and they were sent up to the state. I spent a lot of time at the Board of Elections. We need some changes at the Board of Elections. That all happened in November. Fast forward 60 days, not even, because it's before January 6th. A gentleman named, well, you know what, I'm not going to go into all this. There are some, we need some change at our Board of Elections. And with that, I will introduce LaTricia Brown. Sorry.
Hello. Well, those are some speeches to follow up. But I just want to talk to you about 3 things: transparency,
Yes.
Accountability and trust. Transparency. Any information disseminated to the public should be concise, easy to access, and easy to understand. Accountability is essentially one's willingness to treat others fairly and ethically, and then the willingness to be judged based on your conduct. And trust is built on consistent transparency and accountability. If you are consistently transparent and accountable, you build trust. And I personally feel that the citizens of Chatham County are due far more transparency, accountability, and trust. I'm Trish Brown, and I am a Democratic candidate for the Chatham County Board of Elections. And I want to talk about transparency at the Board of Elections. So recently, I'd say about mid-March, had submitted an open records request in person at the Board of Elections, just asking for the meeting minutes and the agenda items from February the 15th meeting and the March 15th meeting. I was given verbal reasons why they probably weren't going to be able to adhere to that, and I followed up with an email. Now, in the email, I didn't get a response, but sent another email with a formal open records request, and that email I did get a response to a few days later. But that email told me that they wouldn't be able to comply with the request until probably April 1st. Well, it's April 9th, and I still do not have a response to my open records request. So where is the transparency? Accountability. 60% of the current Board of Elections members were not elected officials. There are two members currently, James Hall and Aldrin Murray, the post that I'm running for, that are appointed officials at the Board of Elections, and then there's the chair, who is also an appointed official. Now, Aldrin Murray ran an election for Board of Elections against Antoine Lane, and she lost that election. So how is she enrolled, you may be asking yourself. Well, she was appointed by one man, Jay Jones. There was no special election, there was no vote had by the CCDC, of which I am a post seat holder and would have been privy to. No, she was selected by one man and then sworn in. And that's in the face of what Chatham County told us they did not want. So where is the accountability? James Hall, a Republican member on the Board of Elections, is actually currently running unopposed and is an avid believer of the big lie. Was also part of a coordinated effort to throw out almost 7,000 votes. Now that was rejected, thankfully, but he's running unopposed. So he's more than likely going to be sitting on the Board of Elections. And we need people that are willing to fight against believers of a big lie. Right. Accountable people, like such as myself. And will trust at the Board of Elections. Based on my experiences, you can see that they're not consistent and they struggle with transparency. And I do not. I am a mother of 4, well, 6 if you count our dog and our turtle. I am also a wife of 12 years. That's right, I'm not 12, but I'm of age. I am also a board member on the Greater Savannah Black Chamber of Commerce. I was an ambassador for the Pooler Area Chamber of Commerce for 2 years. I am the current president for the SCAD Black Alumni Coalition, and I was just recently recognized for the Community Service Alumni Award by the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I'll be honored for that on the 22nd of this month. And so I am asking for your trust. And you're probably wondering, well, why should you trust this mother of 4 that sits on the board of for the Greater Savannah Black Chamber of Commerce? Well, why should you trust me? I'm new to politics. I've only just recently thrown my hat in the ring. I announced on January of this year, right around my birthday. But you should trust me because I am accountable. I communicate effectively, which my opponent struggles with, and I'm willing to talk across the aisle to give innovative ideas and strategies to make sure that we're acting at the Board of Elections as though we live in 2022. One of the areas that I would like to bring huge change is the hiring process for poll workers. There's no really good reason why the average age of a poll worker in Chatham County is 80 years old. Nothing against that, but the process for applying to be a poll worker is all on paper. There is no online application to open up the applicant pool because we know that born in the 1900s like we were, they're not going to do a paper application. They want to do it online on their phone, and if they can't do it, then they're not going to apply. Well, we need to lighten the load at the Board of Elections and give them more applicants to work with by allowing online applications for poll workers. We also need to create a social media presence and create another way for the community to reach out when they're having issues on election day. Right now, you have to go to the Board of Elections website, click a name, type a generic email, and hope someone gets back to you. They probably won't. And if they do, it's no longer election day when you had the issue that you were faced with. So an online presence and social media outreach would be another pillar that I would like to implement at the Board of Elections. And honestly, I need your help. It is not an election where a lot of money is often raised, but because I am new to politics and I do feel that I am what Chatham County deserves, we need your votes, we need your support, and if you do feel so moved, your donation. We have totes at the front and we have t-shirts in my trunk that I'm happy to give away. But I would love your vote and your support and your willingness to talk about my principles with your friends and your circles. Thank you.
Questions?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Questions?
I think this is the moment for me to tell everybody that you really do need to go to My Voto with a page. I found that I've been dropped. Now, now I've voted since we moved here. The interesting thing, as many of you know, my 99-year-old husband is in memory care. He hadn't been dropped. He can still vote.
Wow.
So I went down, and there was a lot of humming and hawing and humming.
Yeah.
And finally, she printed out and she said, well, I've reinstated it and it's all good. But everybody needs to look. We need to keep telling that over and over and over again.
And I actually had a similar situation. Well, like I said, I have 4 kids, but I went to vote and I hadn't moved, no relocation, no anything. And I had my 3 kids with me, one of them which is 7 months. So it's not easy to get him around the city, right? So I get to my voting location, I go to vote, and they say, oh no, you're in the wrong location. Now, I've lived in this location for 9 years, so why did my location change and why wasn't I notified? So I said, okay, well fine, I'll just do a provisional ballot. I know what I'm allowed to do, I'm educated, right? And they said, well, you can do one, but it's not gonna count. Because it was 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon and I was not in danger of making it to the other location. So I had to pack up all my kids and go to the next location. Now, I have my own business, so I had that luxury. But if I'm at work and I can only clock out for 30 minutes, you don't have that luxury. So you're done.
I agree with Rosemary because I went to do some business at the elections office about 3 years ago. And I unfortunately found out that I was dead.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
You don't have to pay taxes?
You're looking so
Yeah,
well.
I am standing there. Well, actually, it was more than 3 years ago because my mom was still here. And they knew me, and I'm like, I'm standing
I'm clearly not.
How can I? But yeah, when she looked up my information, I was dead in her system.
I'm no longer surprised by the things that I'm hearing about.
Yeah, you look surprisingly well for
But
that.
were there any questions? No questions?
Well, those are good examples, though, of, I mean, Senator Jordan said it earlier, is as much trouble as we had in 2020, you know, SB 202 changes lots of things. The rules have changed. The election that Trish is running for won't be in place
Right.
for 2022. She won't be sworn in until January.
January, right. But my election is May 24th.
But it will be in place for 2024.
Right.
But we have to get through 2022 first.
May I add something? One of the other things that I realize is that with the election board, they will change voting boxes. I know one was over at the senior center on Waters Avenue, and they didn't even let the people that live there know
No.
that they had been, their voting places a spot had been changed, and we had to rush to try and get transportation to take people to the other polling place. But it had a little sign about this big, about the size of an 8.5 sheet paper,
Just
handwritten, nothing
Not official.
professional.
Right.
No, to let people know that you could not vote, that you had to go to some church. And that's bad when you're talking about our senior citizens.
Absolutely, they should not be further inconvenienced.
That's right.
Right.
So the reason I looked into this was I got something called the Center for Voter Information. Now, it was one of those envelopes that came like this, and I probably would have thrown away because I get so much stuff, but I actually opened it up, and it said, according to our review of publicly available records, someone at this address may not be registered to vote.
Someone.
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 You knew to mail it here.
Someone. So there are only two of us, so anyway.
Who was it addressed to, Rosemary?
To whom it may be.
I do have a quick question. When is your race?
My race is May 24th, and actually early voting starts on May 4th.
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
May 2nd.
All of this from a campaign standpoint, vote early, make a plan to vote early. It gives you, if something happens, it gives you time to rectify it.
Exactly.
All those things, plus from a campaign standpoint, we, campaign managers, political directors, we can see who voted. We don't have to call you. We don't have to send you text messages. All those things, we can start turning to folks that haven't voted yet.
Right.
That's really important.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's you, Miss Glendon.
No, and for those who are gonna do absentee ballots, do them as early as possible. Tell your friends to do them as early as possible, because people are making, there was one county, not actually in Georgia, but they have the same type laws, and over 50% were rejected for mistakes.
Texas. I read that.
Yeah,
article.
Texas.
It was
Now, on the
ridiculous.
one in Georgia, because I actually took a friend of mine up there, and we sat there and we completed it, just to make sure. Because you have to write your name on the back of the thing as well as the front. And then when you go down, if you want to get it for the whole cycle, you gotta figure out
Check
which of
that
those
too.
boxes to check and whatnot. So, in order to have it cured and you are okay to vote, just please do them early in case they get rejected.
And I know you want to say something. The the Democratic Party of Georgia and their voter protection team, Cyrus Draper I mentioned earlier, just for those kinds of issues, right? Tremendous amount of absentee ballots because of the pandemic. The DPG and CYRA had put in a ballot curing team. They touched 15,000 or so ballots, Democratic leaning ballots. What was the margin? 12,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how important this is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was going to make a similar point to this, what you just said, in that if it's a toss-up for you between voting absentee or early in person, I would suggest voting early in person.
That's right.
Yes.
110%. Yeah, there's so many more ways to
Especially with
get
the way
caught
they
up.
changed the laws for voting anyway, the drop boxes are inside of the early voting locations,
Right,
and you
yes,
can only do it in the hours that that location is open, so you pretty much have to vote early in person.
And they decreased the amount of boxes.
And the hours.
And the hours.
We could go on and on. You name one voting law that changed, right?
With that, we're going to get to our last candidate of the evening and change from state to federal, and Michelle Munroe, who is running against Boddie Carter in the 1st Congressional District.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I know you weren't expecting to hear someone from the federal level, but I appreciate this opportunity. Not too often that you get out to Skidaway Island and get to meet other people that aren't out and about in some of the Savannah City events. So thank you again for this opportunity. I'm Dr. Michelle Munroe, and I'm running for Congress in the 1st Congressional District that runs from Effingham all the way down to Florida. So 15 different counties, and I'm very excited to be here today. I would like to start though, because most people don't get the opportunity to hear my story, because we get a few minutes, and so it's been nice to have more of this fireside chat a little bit. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. So I started off in Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I'm originally from. I was actually born in Florida though, Homestead Air Force Base. My dad was in the military. We're 3 generations of military. And so as I grew up, my mom got sick when my dad was in the Air Force, and we were stationed in Germany. And she got Hodgkin's disease. And I was 6 years old. And at 6 years old though, the military flew us from Germany to Andrews Air Force Base. And I got the opportunity to work with a nurse there. Her name was Nurse Boddie. And I say that because very few times now you see the ability to take children into an appointment with you. But I got to go for her chemotherapy appointments. Now my mom used to say to me and my sister, 6 and 4, now what do you gotta do? We have to be quiet. Why do you have to be quiet? Because we're going into a hospital where people are sick. But Nurse Boddie would sit with us, we would color, we would play cards, but she just left this impression on me. And from that point on, I thought, I'm gonna be a nurse. But it wasn't just her. So you see, there was this other opportunity where my mom got really sick and was in the hospital for a few months. We lived with my aunt and uncle at the time, and it was the nurses who snuck us in on the weekend so we could get the opportunity to see my mom. And I swear to this day, I feel like that was a turning point for her, because she went into remission for Hodgkin's disease. And just, you know, we talk about pet therapy, but for me to go in there and see her young kids, I think that was a turning point for her. She was a strong woman, and from that point on, I thought, I'm gonna be a nurse. It resonated with me forever. And no one in my family had been to college. We didn't even know how to navigate applying for college. So I went to Catonsville Community College in Baltimore and started there. And then I transferred to the University of Maryland's nursing program. While I was in the nursing program, a recruiter came to me. I didn't do ROTC, but they had this new scholarship out there called the Army Nurse Candidate Program. And so I got to have a small stipend while I was in school, which, oh, by the way, I was working full-time in school to you know, so that I could work, and then you didn't know the deal. So I worked as a service aide on one of the surgical floors, then worked as a nursing assistant in the emergency room, all while going to school. So, and this was an opportunity. I thought, wow, I won't have to think about what my next job is, and we're a family military, so why not? So I'm the first person to go to college, and I'm the first officer, and oh, by the way, I'm the first one in the Army. My dad was Air Force, my uncles are all Navy, and they're like, why the Army? Well, the Army gave me the money. Right. That's right. The Army gave me the money.
Always works.
And you set out in the Army and you think, I'm just going to do 4 years, and I'm going to get out. Well, when you're in the Army, they offer you these opportunities for learning. And that's so incredible, because I believe in lifelong learning. And I really sometimes think that was instilled because of the military, because they're always sending you to something to progress your leadership, your professionalism, or some sort of career opportunities. So 28 and a half years later, here I am at Fort Stewart, and I fell in love with coastal Georgia. 10 different assignments. I've lived everywhere, Hawaii, Germany, all over the world, and I couldn't leave coastal Georgia. It just, we fell in love with it. My husband and I started looking at houses, and we found the absolute perfect house. We said, okay, we're gonna find a house on the water, and the house has gotta have an extra bedroom down in case either of our parents need to move in. Well, last week my mother-in-law moved in with us. So it was fortuitous that I'm here and that we're here. But once I retired, I wasn't done. I was like, I still feel this need to serve. And I kept looking at the midwife's birth center. Do I work there? Because I'm a midwife. I'm a nurse and a midwife because the Army sent me back to school and I became a certified nurse midwife. I've delivered over 1,000 babies. I have 18 years of experience as a midwife in the federal system with independent practice, but Georgia doesn't let me do that. And did you know that 79 of our 159 counties don't have an obstetrician? So I'm required to have a supervising physician, but there aren't enough to go around. I just learned this morning, I've been saying we've had 8 rural hospitals closed. We've had 10 rural hospitals closed in 10 years. One of our issues, one of the main issues that I fight for is maternal and infant mortality. And do you know, as a black or brown woman in this state, you are twice as likely to die in a hospital? You are 4 times as likely to have a preterm delivery, all because we don't have access to care. That is a huge issue. And so I was devastated. I was like, how can this be? We've got to make some change. I went and talked to Boddie. I said, let me be your subject matter expert. I will help you. These are things that we can do. Offered solutions. You know what he said to me? He said, that's not my issue.
Oh my God.
Really? He said, that's a state issue. Well, as a federal legislator, in my eyes, I need to work with the state representatives on the issues for the people. Because at the House of Representatives, you're supposed to represent the people. That's the whole purpose of your representative. So it just empowered me. And I went home, my husband said, I think I need to do this. He's like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this? And over, we talked about it, and more, I just felt empowered to step in this race. And so I am like Tricia, I stepped in January, which is a little bit later, but I qualified in March just like everybody else. I'm going to be on the ballot just like everybody else. And I tell you, we need somebody who's going to fight for change in this district. So my slogan is, I'm a trusted leader for change. I'm trusted because as a nurse and a midwife, we're the #1 trusted profession 20 years in a row on Gallup polls. I'm a proven leader. I have 28 and a half years of military experience that culminated in being the first female commander at Wynn Army Community Hospital. 53 years of existence, and I was the first female. Not only that, I was the commander when the pandemic started. So I was responsible for putting all the policies and procedures in place to make sure that 85,000 beneficiaries and 1,800 employees were protected. Now, we had some positive cases, but we lost not one person. Not one person. As a military officer, I'm also a change agent. You see, I told you I've been at 10 different places in 24 years, so or 28 years. So we spend 2 to 3 years in our assignments. We have to go in and make change quickly. I know how to do that. So your elected official is only elected for 2 years. And then you might not be in the seat anymore. So you've got to be able to make change, know what you want to change, and have solutions for change that you're willing to work for and be passionate about. So I do want to expand Medicaid, and I will work with our other elected officials to expand Medicaid, because do you know in the state of Georgia, you have to be at 225% at the poverty level to actually be eligible for Medicaid? It's ridiculous. there are 1.3 million people uninsured in this state. 800,000 of them are working. They are working but cannot afford insurance. So we need to increase the minimum wage so that families can support themselves. That's all people want, to provide basic needs. And we do. We need to fight for prescription change. I also learned while I've been out campaigning that Medicare is not required to comply with government pricing.
Really?
Yes, it's a government program, but they don't have to comply with the government pricing. So if we did government pricing, that would return back to our constituents, the citizens, the people we represent, but we don't do that. And so for me, healthcare is a foundation of everything that we do. Because when you're sick, you can't work. When you're sick, you can't go to school. But school is also another issue. You see, the state of Georgia doesn't require you to go to school till you're age 6. So mandatory kindergarten is not a thing. And yet we say there's science behind 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds getting some sort of education sets them up for success, that foundation that starts at such an early age and can move forward and helps them with solutions to be successful. But as Representative Boddie talked about, those apprenticeship programs, what are our kids doing in summertime? 15, 16-year-old, they can be working. And I have family members who are plumbers. They'd love to have them in the summertime. They can work side by side with them at 16 years old. So they developing a trade and experience to say, is this something I want to do? They get to go into their own business, develop a small business. They can go to college if they choose and have money that will help them. It gives them experience, it gives them leadership. Those transitions of life in high school and college and military and retirement, we need to use those people to find successful programs for those transitions in life. And so I am, as you hear, very passionate about doing what's right for this district, doing what's right for coastal Georgia, because we need a representative who's going to work for the people. So I thank you for your time today. I thank you very much. I'm Dr. Michelle Munroe, and my website is munroeforcongress.com. I hope that I earn your vote on May 24th because we also are in a competitive primary. Look for the M. You see my signs around?
They are everywhere, girl.
They are everywhere. And if what I said today resonated with you, of course I'd love to have that donation. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, I just want to say that we're very happy to have had you here. I'm really happy for you, Mr. Boddie. It was wonderful, and having Marcus here who's running.
How you doing?
The most special thing for me is to have the Honorable Edna Jackson sitting here. She's a dear friend, and we are lucky to have her, and we are so glad she doesn't have anybody running against her.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do? I thought you didn't.
Yeah, the Libertarian.
Oh.
He has to get his signatures, and it's in the general election.
Oh, okay.
The one that ran when I ran.
Oh, I
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah, we'll get through that.
Edna was honored yesterday by the Girl Scouts of Savannah.
I know.
We were at the same luncheon.
Yeah.
It was such an honor.
It was.
I didn't know that I was going to receive the award until the day before. When Kristen called, and we've been working on several things for Girl Scouting. And I was not a Girl Scout, but I think it's one of the most tremendous programs for our young people, young ladies, and well, children. I call everybody young ladies. And so it's quite an honor. They gave me this wonderful emerald pin to wear, and I will wear with honor.
And I heard you had a special dessert made with a new flavor or something. I saw it on the news this morning.
Selected by the mayor of Savannah.
Of course. You know, there was a discussion about the trade schools and stuff. I thought it was wonderful that St. Joseph's has done a partnership. That should be a model for the state.
It should be. It should
It's
be.
absolutely incredible because we know that there are so many vacancies for jobs
Yes.
in healthcare. And what a great place to I mean, healthcare has been my life, so obviously it's something I thought was just a wonderful thing and should be promoted all over the state.
I completely agree with the healthcare jobs being at an all-time low in Georgia. We have an all-time low in nurses.
Yes.
Rural Georgia hospitals are leaving us. I think we lost 9 in the last 8 years. 10. Wow. 10. Wow. 10 and 10. And so it's just unreal. But I also think another opportunity, being that this is a military town, is we need to look more into how do we get our veterans back into the workforce. The Vector program out of Warner Robins is an amazing program.
Yeah.
And I've talked with the Technical College System of Georgia to basically duplicate that across the state. Basically what it is if you are a veteran, you're coming out back into civilian life, you get housing, transitional housing, but then you can also get training with other veterans, CDL license, HVAC, whatever, and it's all in one building, and it's pretty much paid for by the state of Georgia, which it should be. And so Warner Robins was like the first, but we need to duplicate that. We need to have one here, one in Hinesville, one in Columbus, one in Augusta. So we need to have and Columbus.
And
So
the
it might-
money has been approved for technical colleges.
Yes, it has.
And we included in that, I hope it's gonna work, our unions, because they
Yes.
have apprenticeship
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
Our building trades have an amazing apprenticeship program.
So in my other life, I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and I urge you, anybody who's interested in this, our last month I did the programs, and we did a program on healthcare. The Commonwealth Fund is probably the premier organization in the country, and the first speaker did a wonderful segment on why we are 46 out of 51 in the nation, and he described all of the areas where we're, so it's on the League of Women Voters website. It's about 45 minutes, but it's a really good program and you should look at it. You would learn a lot. Anybody else have anything to say?
I want to say one other thing. Madam Mayor has been amazing at the Gold Dome. Now, she came in, and she has represented Savannah and amazing. So I appreciate your leadership, and I'm glad we got to come back for another term.
Yes.
We had to negotiate. I'm glad she came back. We need her.
May I announce, Shirley asked me if I could announce for her that they're having tables set up out at Daffin Park tomorrow to encourage people to come and vote. The League of Women Voters are involved in that. Also, Black Voters Matters and other groups. So it'll be at 2 o'clock.
And hopefully
tomorrow
it'll be warm
at
up.
Daffin Park. I hope so.
I hope it's warm up.
Yes.
I know, right?
Today is really fingers crossed.
It's the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's freezing today.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. We heard, I mean, this was really focused on statewide and federal, and really flipping seats. I mean, these are some competitive primaries, but this is really about flipping seats in November. I'm gonna bring up Marcus because while he's not he's not running for a district that is represented on Skidaway, he is in a hotly contested district that represents Richmond Hill up to Pooler. And Senator Jen said it a little bit earlier, is, you know, we can all fight for Stacy to get elected. But without some support at the legislative level, without the support at the constitutional offices, I think I get that right? And without the support of the other offices like the Attorney General and the Secretary of State, she will get shut down. I mean, and we saw that.
In the legislature.
And in the legislature, yes. I mean, that's the where Marcus comes in, because that is top 5, maybe top 10 competitive seats in the State House.
Yes.
We saw the power of how that changes at the federal level when we flipped the Senate and put Senator Ossoff in Warnock.
Yeah.
Biden would not be able to get the things that he's done without those 2 seats being flipped. All of these things come into play, and Marcus, within coastal Georgia, Marcus's seat is that seat in the State House. So, that being said, he's gonna sneak up here.
Just a couple
All right.
minutes, because I do want to, and thank y'all for having me, but thank you mostly for highlighting Representative Boddie, Trish Brown, Dr. Munroe, and Jen Jordan. The only reason I wanted to, and I'm glad you mentioned this, I spoke about this at Hello Neighbor today. We wouldn't have Ketanji Brown Jackson today if we had not flipped those seats in 2020. If we didn't have Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock, they would not have confirmed her. This is what happens when we flip seats. And one of the reasons this is so important, because now we can see we can forecast what it's going to look like when Stacey Abrams flips the governor's house. But then if she walks in with no support behind her, it's going to be a very, very difficult 4 years. So that's where I come in. We have a chance here to flip one of the most hotly contested seats in the state. And they made a mistake when they didn't refortify their boundaries, so to speak, with reapportionment and redistricting. They only increased it by about 2 to 4 points. I'm going to kill that 2 to 4 points with your help, with you guys' help. Now we have to make this happen. I'm not the only seat that needs to be flipped, but I can tell you one thing, this is something that you can directly impact for Stacey Abrams by helping me flip this seat in November. And then we can walk across the finish line together, Brother Boddie. Yes. Thank you so much.
And I was really bringing that up because this is part of a series. We will have more of these for the other statewide seats and other seats that are local, county district level seats as well. So keep an eye on your email box. We'll get dates as we confirm folks and stuff, but that's it. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.